Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is JP Tasker from CBC News, and I'll be the moderator for today's press conference. Hello to the ministers. We have Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne, Treasury Board President Anita, Anand, Housing Minister Sean Fraser, and the Health Minister Mark Holland. There's a large crowd up there today. So we will turn it over to you for your statements and then throw it back to me, and we'll take questions from the room when you're finished. Thanks, ministers. Go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I am delighted to be here today for this year's final update on our economic plan, and I will have some news to share about the 2024 budget in a moment. Then I'll pass it over to Sean, who will provide an update on our government's work to build more homes faster, as well as a new tool to do so in the form of a new housing catalogue. François-Philippe will then speak about our government's work to enhance competition and stabilize prices. Mark will then speak about the new Canadian dental care plan. He didn't bring the toothbrush, but we can all imagine it. And the dental coverage that we are expanding to Canadians across the country. And finally, Anita will speak about regulatory modernization and provide an update on the spending review. A key tool our government uses to update Canadians on our economic plan is our annual federal budget. Et quand nous élaborons nos budgets, la chose la plus importante pour moi est d'écouter les Canadiennes et les Canadiens au sujet des défis qu'ils vivent, de leurs espoirs pour l'avenir et ce sur quoi ils aimeraient que le gouvernement se concentre. C'est pourquoi je suis tellement heureuse de vous annoncer que les consultations prébudgétaires de notre gouvernement pour 2024 commencent officiellement aujourd'hui. Whether it is building more homes faster, making life more affordable, or growing our economy and creating great careers for people right across Canada, we want to hear about what matters most to Canadians. And Canadians can share their priorities for Budget 2024 at letstalkbudget24.ca until February 9th, 2024. Avant de conclure, puisque nous en sommes à la toute dernière mise à jour hebdomadaire de notre plan économique avant la fin de l'année 2023, j'aimerais rappeler certains progrès que nous avons accomplis pour les Canadiennes et Canadiens au cours des 12 derniers mois. We've unlocked billions of dollars in new financing to build over 100,000 new homes. We're helping 300,000 Canadians and counting save up for their first down payment through the new tax-free First Home Savings Account. And with the new Canadian Mortgage Charter, we're protecting Canadians who are struggling to renew their mortgages. More than 2.3 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty since we formed government in 2015. Childcare fees have been reduced by an average of 50% across the country, and childcare now costs just $10 a day in 6 provinces and territories, saving families across Canada thousands of dollars a year. Inflation is down. Wage growth has outpaced inflation for 9 months in a row, and private sector economists now expect Canada to avoid the post-pandemic recession that many had predicted. In the first half of this year, Canada received the 3rd most foreign direct investment of any country in the entire world, and more investment per capita than any of our G7 allies. Most importantly, our economic plan is creating great jobs for people from coast to coast to coast. And indeed, compared to before the pandemic, over 1 million more Canadians are employed today. This is our plan, and it could not contrast more sharply with the approach we saw from the Conservative leader last week, when he spent more than 24 hours voting to cut everything, from support for students, to support for Ukraine, to childcare, even to funding for detecting explosives at airports. Notre gouvernement travaille fort, mais il nous reste du travail à accomplir et j'ai bien hâte d'entendre les points de vue des Canadiennes et des Canadiens pendant la préparation de notre budget de 2024, qui est la prochaine étape de notre plan économique. Je vous remercie et je vais maintenant céder la parole au ministre Fraser. Sean, over to you.
Thanks very much, Chrystia. Thanks, colleagues, for being with me, and thanks to everyone for joining. Look, I've got some exciting news to share, but perhaps we'll take a quick walk down a path that Canada's walked a number of decades ago to set the stage. We are living in a housing crisis, but it's not the first time Canada's been here. After the Second World War, when many thousands of soldiers were returning home to be reunited with their families at once, Canada faced enormous housing crunches. One of the tools that was deployed at the time to respond to the challenges they faced at that particular point in time was the development of simple pre-approved designs by Wartime Housing Limited. In fact, they adopted designs that many will remember as victory homes or strawberry box homes that can be observed right across the country. It's a coincidence of it today that we've got the member for Ajax here with me. The city was more or less built on the concept that these homes could provide a pathway to address the housing challenges that existed after the Second World War. What followed in the decades to come was a continued practice of abiding by this principle that pre-approved designs would provide a simple and cost-effective way to actually build homes. I actually brought with me today a catalog from 1954 that provided small home designs. This is a particular issue was on bungalows and split-level houses, and for a fee of $10, you could actually have access to designs that could be built quickly. In many instances, these homes were being built in a period of about 36 hours. We intend to take these lessons from our history books and bring them into the 21st century. We are going to be moving forward with a catalog of pre-approved designs at the federal level. We are going to be launching consultations on the contents of that catalog in January of 2024. It provides an extraordinary opportunity to use the solutions of the past to identify and overcome, rather, challenges that we face today. The next version of a catalog of pre-approved designs won't focus on the same kinds of homes that were included in the post-war era. We're going to be looking for a series of different kinds of homes and different designs within each category. We'll be looking for pre-approved designs for multiplexes, for mid-rise buildings, for student housing, for seniors' residences, and other small to medium-scale residential properties. This will include garden suites and laneway homes and different kinds of houses that will solve the challenges that our communities are facing today. It's important that we have multiple designs in each of these categories so communities have some agency in determining what their communities look like. And of course, builders will continue to be free to build homes that have that are not necessarily included inside any pre-approved design. But what's really exciting is the efficiencies that we expect to gain. The pre-approved catalog of designs, or rather the catalog of pre-approved designs, is going to be tied to existing building codes, the National Building Code, which we will seek to make changes to in the future, but it will also be designed to mirror the requirements of provincial building codes that are implemented across the country. We're going to ensure that the pre-approved designs meet the standards to access CMHC's programs so we can reduce the administrative barriers on applicants who are seeking to go through the process. And it's not a coincidence that we've been pushing so many municipalities to upzone to achieve density through the Housing Accelerator Fund. Part of the reason that we have been pushing so many large cities in Canada to adopt 4 units as of right zoning is we intend to include 4-plex designs in the catalog that we'll be moving forward with so we can align access to CMHC's programs with building code requirements and with municipal approvals. The goal of having a streamlined catalog of pre-approved designs is to cut time and costs from the process of building. Moreover, we're going to have a focus on home designs that are cost-effective, labor-efficient, and energy-efficient. We want to create designs that can actually be built quickly and can be built cheaply without compromising on quality or sustainability. It's also going to ensure that people who live in these homes have reduced power bills month to month and can continue to manage with the cost of living. It's really exciting to me because we're going to embrace new technologies that exist today in an effort to scale them up. We expect there will be significant space for modular home designs, for panelization, for mass timber, and potentially even 3D printing, depending on what the consultation tells us. To give you a sense of who this is going to help, beyond the residents who will live in the homes that are built more quickly, think about nonprofit developers who are seeking to deal with the rising cost of building. And to be able to have access to a design off the shelf provided by the government is going to reduce the cost of hiring their own architect, and it's going to allow them to speed up the process of approvals through CMHC's application process. Think about larger scale developers who will be dealing with reduced costs and efficiencies achieved with economies of scale when they're able to produce more of the same product over time. It's also going to incentivize those who are thinking of investing in home building factories to make that investment when there's a greater degree of certainty around the demand that's going to exist for those who will be looking to build at scale. And finally, it's going to help new players get into the sector. When you look at the cost of hiring that person who will provide the design for you and the time that it will take, someone who is thinking of starting a development company is facing a lot of barriers to entry. By providing a catalog of pre-approved designs, we're going to reduce the cost and time to build, making it easier for individuals and small companies who are looking to get into the business of home building to actually take that next step. So beginning in January, we will be launching a consultation hearing from home builders, from provinces and territories, from cities, from nonprofits, from Indigenous leadership, and from others who have a say in this conversation. I'm extremely excited about the impact that it's going to have and looking forward to moving forward with a concrete way to help build more homes faster in an effort to help address Canada's national housing crisis. Thank you. With that, je vais passer la parole à ma collègue François-Philippe.
Well, listen, thank you, Sean. I can't resist to say I love it, by the way. If you look at the catalog, it looks like a lot from the neighborhood in Shawinigan that was built. This is amazing. It's going to be good for our community, certainly good for jobs and good for industry. The way that Sean presented it, I think it's going to be a watershed moment for our country. And like you said, we're learning from history and bringing that in the 21st century. But you've heard from Sean. I'm just sharing my excitement. Let me talk to you about affordability. You know me,
That's
I can
so
resist.
uncharacteristic.
Exactly. I just think it's great. Bonjour tout le monde, Evna. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you, as Minister Freeland said to our last press conference before the holidays. Comme vous le savez, dans le cadre de nos efforts que nous déployons pour stabiliser les prix à l'épicerie, hier, avec le ministre Macaulay, on a eu une rencontre avec nos homologues provinciaux et territoriaux pour parler de comment nous pouvons travailler ensemble étroitement pour soutenir les consommateurs canadiens. Lors de la rencontre, le commissaire de la concurrence, Matthew Boswell, a partagé les résultats d'études de marché sur la concurrence dans le secteur de l'alimentation, ainsi que les recommandations de son bureau qui ont été formulées pour accroître la concurrence dans un des secteurs clés de l'économie. Vous rappellerez, dans le rapport qui a été présenté par M. Boswell, il y avait un bon nombre de recommandations pour stabiliser les prix au Canada. D'abord, on parlait de l'entrée sur le marché canadien de nouveaux joueurs étrangers, un enjeu sur lequel je me suis penché pour voir qui on pourrait éventuellement amener dans le marché canadien pour amener plus de concurrence. Puis on a vu que dans plusieurs pays, particulièrement en Europe, même en Asie-Pacifique, le fait d'avoir un nouveau joueur qui rentre dans le marché, ça a un effet bénéfique pour les consommateurs pour stabiliser les prix et voire éventuellement réduire les prix. Deuxièmement, dans le rapport de M. Boswell, on parle aussi de la présence accrue d'épiciers indépendants. Et ça, c'est vrai en particulier dans les communautés rurales au pays, dans les régions éloignées. Et finalement, on a parlé de l'introduction d'une tarification unitaire, accessible et harmonisée à travers le pays. Les résidents et résidentes du Québec le savent bien. Vous savez, au Québec, on est la seule province au Canada à ce jour qui a des prix unitaires. Donc, quand les gens vont à l'épicerie, ils sont capables de voir le prix à l'unité des différentes denrées, des différents produits. Et ça, avec les collègues d'à travers le pays, on a parlé de la possibilité d'étendre cette pratique-là à travers le pays pour aider les consommateurs, les consommatrices à faire des choix éclairés. Comme vous le savez, notre gouvernement a mis de l'avant une réforme majeure de la loi sur la concurrence. Je dois dire, on avait commencé avec la ministre Freeland dans le budget de 2022. Vous avez vu dans le projet de loi sur l'abordabilité, on est allé plus loin. Et même dans la dernière énoncé économique d'automne de 2023, on prévoit encore des mesures supplémentaires. Donc, je vous dirais que c'est la plus grande réforme depuis une vingtaine d'années au pays. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on sait que la concurrence, c'est la meilleure façon de stabiliser les prix sur le long terme, d'offrir des meilleurs choix pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes et évidemment de s'assurer qu'à moyen et long terme, on puisse avoir plus de concurrence, non seulement dans l'industrie de l'alimentation, mais dans d'autres industries au pays. Donc ça, c'est un des pans majeurs de l'abordabilité qu'on a lancé avec la ministre Freeland puis avec les collègues. So once again, I think it's fair to say this morning that I call on the Conservatives, and I trust they're listening, to support this very long overdue reform of the Competition Act to finally bring some relief to Canadian consumers. This is one of the best ways, as I was saying, to provide stability in prices across the food sector, but also more broadly across many sectors of the industry in Canada. I was saying before that this is the most comprehensive reform in about 20 years that we've seen in the country that we're bringing, because we do believe that this is really the best way to help Canadian consumer. Another thing that we talked about with colleagues from across the nation yesterday was the Grocery Code of Conduct. Many of you have seen the initiative that's been launched almost 2 years ago. A very worthwhile initiative. You know, Grocery Code of Conduct exists in a number of jurisdictions. And we have seen the benefits when you bring more transparency, more balance, helping small and medium-sized producers to have a better sense of equity when they're dealing with the large grocers. And we need to get the code over the line. So if there's people watching today, especially the people in the grocery sector, we do need to get that over the line. We are adamant that this is going to be helping to bring price stability in the country. And our position has been clear all along. This has been led by industry for almost 2 years. And we want everyone, let me repeat, everyone to sign the Code of Conduct, because that's the best way, obviously, to have more transparency, but also the balance that we need in the market. Because we know that the Grocery Code of Conduct will bring more fairness, and we heard that from the independent grocers across the country, more transparency. And you've seen since we launched the affordability agenda with colleagues, we have been adamant to provide more information with the Food Data Hub and other tools to have more transparency, because, again, you've seen that in the United States and other jurisdictions. When you have more data, it allows for a better negotiation with the small players towards the large grocer. And finally, more stability, because you'll see under the code, there's a process to resolve disputes, for example, and making sure that there will be fairness. That's where we're working with provinces and territories, because I would say I'm pleased to report that we're all aligned in making sure that we get the code across the line. And that's why we'll be meeting again in the new year. We've agreed. I think I would say it was one of the first meetings. It's always dangerous when you use word like historic, but I would say having ministers from pretty much all provinces and territories to talk about affordability and looking at, you know, what we could do together. This is a whole of Canada effort. It's Team Canada playing and trying to look. Obviously, there's a number of things we've been doing with Minister Freeland and colleagues which are at the federal level. And I think Canadians are right to expect leadership from us, and that's what we've been providing. But also, there's an understanding that there's a number of things that the provinces and territories can do within their jurisdictions when it comes to consumers' affairs in particular and protecting consumers. So we've agreed to meet again to further the work in the beginning of the new year. And I think this is going to be good, because we're going to look at all options at our disposal, for example, when it comes to the Grocery Code of Conduct, to make sure this becomes reality for Canadians. So as you know, when it comes to food inflation, and you've heard me say that before, every day is a good day to fight for Canadians. And that's why you see this government, the Prime Minister and this team doing that every day, looking at even things we did just after the Second World War, the thing that we're doing today to bring relief to Canadians. And we're going to keep engaging, not only as a federal government, but with provinces and territories, to see how more we can do together to bring the relief that Canadians expect. So with that, ça va me faire plaisir de passer la parole à mon collègue, le ministre Holland. Sir?
Merci beaucoup. C'est un grand plaisir d'être ici. Et hier, certainement, c'était un jour tellement historique pour notre système de santé, mais pour le pays généralement. Et pour moi, ce n'était pas juste une question d'améliorer notre système de santé, mais c'était vraiment quelque chose qui va rendre la vie plus abordable et certainement créer un pays plus juste. Et c'est absolument essentiel pour notre croissance économique aussi. And, you know, Sean's talking about Ajax, and you're absolutely right. All the principles that Sean's talking about, if you go and you drive around Ajax, those were fundamental to building our community, and I'm so excited by what he's talking today. But I'll borrow kind of the analogy. You know, when you think of a house, everybody thinks about what's from the ground up. And you look at it, and you can have beautiful homes, but you don't think a lot about your foundation. You don't think about your foundation until something goes seriously wrong. That's the role health plays in our economy. It is the most important and yet invisible ally to our health system. It's an absolutely essential part of our economic growth. Because if you don't have health, you certainly can't be productive. You can't show up to your job. You can't innovate. You can't collaborate. You can't create. So good health is essential to our economic growth. And so what we did yesterday, and I'm glad to get the opportunity to take an economic perspective on this, because it isn't just about creating social justice and ensuring that everybody has access to a proud and joyful smile and that it's healthy. It's about ensuring that a person who otherwise would have oral health issues, we know that in many instances that creates a block for them to go in and ask for that job or go take a chance on starting something. We know, unfortunately, as well, that if you don't have access to oral health care, and I would say 1 in 4 Canadians say that they don't see an oral health professional because of affordability, that means that they don't get the care that they need. And in too many instances, when I'm talking to health professionals, they're saying that folks have to wait until their situation deteriorates into crisis, until they have to go into an emergency room in order to address those issues, which is preeminently preventable, which can obviously save an enormous amount of money not to wait to that circumstance. But think of the lost productivity. Think of the ways those folks could be contributing to our economy. Saying nothing of the fact that by having poor oral health, this is seen as being a leading contributor to cardiovascular disease, to diabetes, and to other chronic diseases and illness. We have to think of prevention in our health system as being an essential ally to our economic success. And so when conservatives vote against dental care or are talking about deep cuts, and you think about what that means, they're actually talking about losing enormous amounts of money. Because bad health today, poor preventative decisions today, mean huge costs in the future. And I would also say, you know, some folks, we were talking a lot about seniors, and we think about, you know, about making life more affordable to them. But what's the impact? And I talked yesterday in Spencer House in Nova Scotia of talking to a group of seniors who said to me, you know, this isn't going to happen. You're not really going to do this thing. And I said, no, we're going to do it. And these are folks who had the same dentures for decades, right? Who didn't have the opportunity to replace them, didn't have the money to replace them. When they realized that, no, this is actually going to happen, that they're going to be able to get new dentures, it was one of the most incredible moments of my political life, because the joy that was there, that sense of dignity, of pride, what does that mean to their future health? What kind of costs are going to be avoided? You know, engaging socially, being out in their communities, having the kinds of activities they're going to make not only their lives rich, but to avoid the kind of illness and disease that comes from isolation. This is fundamentally, yes, something that's wonderful from a social justice perspective, but it is going to have an absolutely powerful impact in terms of cost avoidance, productivity, and creation for this country. Merci beaucoup.
Thanks, Mark. Anita, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Chrystia, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to provide you with an update on 2 things. First of all, our efforts to cut red tape, and second, we'll be focusing on the spending review. And it's all against the backdrop of the fundamental principle that we will always be there to invest in Canadians, to support Canadians, especially vulnerable Canadians, in a fiscally responsible manner, as you saw in the fall economic statement, which was very targeted in terms of supporting important areas like affordable housing and like benefits for small businesses. Now, let's move to item 1, that's on cutting red tape. Nous nous efforçons également de mieux soutenir les Canadiens et les entreprises en modernisant la réglementation, notamment par la réduction du fardeau administratif. Yesterday, I met with the External Advisory Committee on Regulatory Competitiveness, and that's a committee that provides advice on how to modernize regulations to improve quality of life, to support small businesses, and to help ultimately grow our economy. They're doing very important work on the ground with medium and small businesses to help to ensure that our regulatory environment meets the standard of excellence that Canadians expect from us. And what did they hear in their consultations? Well, they heard that red tape is costly. It is especially costly in terms of regulatory compliance for small businesses that struggle with complex obligations. And those regulatory compliance issues ultimately add costs and add time, internal management time, in terms of running a business efficiently. And as the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses has indicated, 50% of small businesses say that they would increase employee wages if the cost of regulations were reduced. So you can see how fundamentally important it is to address red tape and, in fact, regulatory compliance obligations. So what we are doing as a federal government is to, in fact, work to cut red tape, to streamline efficiencies, and to improve the overall process, compliance process for small businesses, so that we can see more competition, as François-Philippe has indicated in terms of his review of the Competition Act, but also that we can see the growth of economic opportunities for small businesses. This brings me to a piece of legislation, as you may be asking tangibly, what are you going to do as a federal government to improve the life of small businesses in this country over and above the CEBA loan, which we've extended a number of times? We have in process a bill, Bill S6. This is an act respecting regulatory modernization. It's on second reading right now, where we will offer no cost relief to businesses and Canadians so as to reduce the financial and time-costly burdens that they face. For example, look at permanent residents. When they apply for a temporary application, they take the time to answer over 100 questions. When they apply for a settlement stream in a specific province, they have to answer most of these questions all over again, because we currently cannot share data with the provinces. This is redundant, this is inefficient, and so we're seeking to change that in this bill. Another thing that Bill S6 does is it allows, just as an example, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to go paperless, which will save time and money for farmers and related businesses. That's an excellent example of how we can use the modern era and modern technology to serve efficiencies in businesses. Les améliorations nécessaires à notre système réglementaire, telles qu'énumérées dans le projet de loi S6, peuvent se faire à coût nul, compte un très faible niveau de risque et ont des bénéfices économiques très larges. Donc, il y aurait des bénéfices économiques très larges. So next year, we're going to hear more about Bill 6. As I said, it's on second reading. We're working with our Senate colleagues, in particular Senator Colin Deacon, to ensure that we will see necessary improvements to our regulatory system at no cost and low associated risks, with large economic benefits to small businesses. Now let me move to the second item, turning now to government spending. The OECD reports that more than 75% of its members, including the UK, France, and the Netherlands, conduct some form of spending review, either annually or periodically. And our government is doing the exact same thing to ensure that we are not spending unnecessarily and to ensure that we are refocusing our spending to priorities that matter for Canadians. As outlined in the supplementary estimates, we are refocusing government spending in terms of $500 million. $150 million of that is savings on travel that will be refocused, as well as $350 million on discretionary professional services or external contracting that we're refocusing towards our government spending. And I will note that the Conservatives voted against that measure. That is, they have voted against reducing our spending in these areas. They voted against 120 measures over Thursday and Friday of last week where we are seeking to support Canadians and add more value towards the priorities that matter to Canadians. Right now, where we are at in terms of the spending review is that we're reviewing each departmental proposal to ensure that those proposals are sustainable and that they don't create future service delivery or program integrity pressures. Les propositions nécessitent un examen plus détaillé, sont examinées par un comité du ministre. So we have a committee of ministers that is looking at each of these proposals. Nous n'avons pas fait les décisions finales. Maintenant, we will be making final decisions and delivering those results in the main estimates at the beginning of 2024. To conclude, I will say that there is a call out right now for supply chain efficiency. And in particular, what we are doing is undertaking public consultations on regulatory opportunities that improve the efficiency and resilience of Canada's supply chains. Those call for proposals are going to be open until January 15th, 2024. As this is our last press conference, I want to encourage everyone who's interested in supply chain efficiency to please submit your views and your concerns prior to that date. And that's the update from Treasury Board. Thank you so much.
Appreciate those presentations. We'll now turn to questions. We're going to do just one question each right now because we're kind of compressed for time, and I want to get as many of you in as possible. And if we do have time, we'll circle back and try and get a second question for each of you. We'll start with Rachel Haynes from CTV, please.
Perfect, thanks. My first question is for Minister Fraser on the new housing announcement, but as JP said, if we do have extra time, I do have a second question for Minister Freeland about Ukraine. Minister Fraser, just to start on your new announcement today, the CMHC has said that Canada needs an additional 3.5 million new housing units. So how many new units do you expect to get built based off any projections that you've done with this new wartime-esque type program you've announced today?
It's hard to understand with certainty. We haven't done this since the 1970s. We expect to get an estimate over the course of the consultation that will launch in January. Today is a commitment to move forward with it, but getting an understanding of how we can incentivize scale-up of factories alone, for example, would be the kind of thing that could vary the estimates by tens of thousands. So we don't have a firm estimate because the consultation hasn't yet taken place, but once we roll that out in January, we expect to have a clearer idea of how many units we would expect as a result of pre-approved designs. I have seen estimates from experts in the field indicating this could cut up to 1 year off the time for construction on a project. So more than just getting more units, getting units built more quickly will also be a part of the advantage. But when we have clarity following the consultation, we'd be happy to provide that information.
Valerie Gamache, Radio-Canada.
J'allais dans le même sens, M. Fraser. Premièrement, combien d'argent va être consacré à ce programme-là? C'est quoi la cible de réduction de coûts et combien d'unités peut-on espérer voir sortir de terre?
Ce n'est pas nécessaire d'augmenter l'argent dans le dossier pour obtenir un nouveau programme comme ça. Et ce n'est pas très cher de créer un produit comme ça, mais je pense que c'est une demande dans le système pour conduire le processus de consultation, mais ce n'est pas beaucoup de millions de dollars pour avancer ce programme. I don't think it's going to be a very expensive process. Largely, it's going to be staff time during the consultation. There will be a decision we'll have to take in terms of how we implement the designs. The different ideas that are coming to me now could include a request for proposals where we would select designs that come from the public. Others would involve a government platform that could create a licensing opportunity for the architects who provide designs, for example. The details on how we move forward will emerge from the consultation, but there's no universe that I see where this becomes a major expense for the government. It's more of a coordinating role where the government can reduce the cost for builders without a significant expense to the taxpayer.
Yeah, et j'ajouterai
Oui, oui.
et répéterai juste que la réalité est l'inverse. Ce n'est pas un programme qui coûte cher, c'est un programme qui nous permettra d'économiser, de construire plus de logements, plus vite, moins cher. Parce que si on a un catalogue, on pourra en même temps construire plus vite et on pourra le faire moins cher parce qu'on a déjà un plan qui a toutes les approbations nécessaires.
Si je peux me permettre d'ajouter sur ça, vous avez peut-être vu qu'à la COP28, le Canada était le coprésident de l'initiative sur le ciment et le béton vert. Donc, non seulement ce que le ministre Fraser est en train d'annoncer, c'est comment on peut faire plus rapidement, mais moi, je dirais aussi plus écologiquement, parce que vous avez vu sur les 2 ou 3 grandes initiatives à la COP28 où j'étais avec le ministre Guilbeault, le Canada était le vice-président de cette initiative-là. Imaginez, la première usine de béton vert et de ciment vert au monde, pas au Canada, au monde, ça sera à Edmonton, en Alberta. Et ensuite de ça, on espère que ce genre d'initiative-là pourrait être reproduite à travers le pays. Donc, c'est pas seulement de bâtir plus rapidement, mais j'oserais dire même de façon plus écologique. Puis, une autre des commissions au Canada a fait une différence. C'était par exemple sur l'usage du bois dans la construction. On sait que le Canada a une industrie forestière qui est florissante. Alors, comment on peut utiliser aussi le bois comme matériau de construction davantage pour bâtir ça? Donc, ça va certainement faire. Moi, je pense que derrière l'initiative du ministre Fraser, puisque la ministre Freeland disait, il y a comme une initiative d'un pays qui se modernise au niveau de la construction, au niveau des façons de construire, mais aussi de l'empreinte écologique de ce qu'on va construire pour les prochaines générations. Moi, je pense que c'est une belle opportunité pour l'industrie puis pour le pays.
Et si je peux ajouter quelque chose
On
aussi.
est tous contents de
C'est très
l'initiative.
court, mais vous avez vu aujourd'hui, chaque ministre a offert quelque chose pour la population canadienne où nous continuons de livrer les résultats plus efficaces et plus vite. Et ça, c'est nécessaire dans ce temps économique et nous allons le faire ensemble.
Najoud Al-Maliz with Canadian Press.
I was going to say
Ajax.
Minister Holland might want to go. Mr. Fraser, I'm just wondering, you don't talk about timeline in terms of when you would hope this catalog comes together. So I'm wondering that. And part 2 to that question, I'm hoping you can clarify a little bit about, you know, what it means to start with low rise and then what you hope to do from there. Like
Sure.
what- yeah, sorry.
So thank you. So in terms of timeline, I've mentioned we're going to launch a consultation in January. We anticipate that we will have blueprints that you can look at in calendar year 2024. My hope is that we'll be able to have them start to roll out in the fall. Keep in mind, there's the possibility as new technologies emerge to add designs in the sense that we can create a living program, so to speak. For example, although we have significant technology with in place when it comes to modular home construction panelization, 3D printing has an opportunity to expand the scale of their operations in Canada, and to the extent we in the future determine there's designs we could add for new technologies that emerge, that could happen subsequent to a fall 2024 timeline. Sorry, you asked for the timeline. There was a part B to your question. I apologize.
Timeline and then the whole starting with low rise and then
Yeah,
what that
certainly.
means.
So we're going to start with certain kinds of home designs that we view to be necessary to help enhance density, including gentle density within cities across Canada. So the first tranche of designs, pending the results of the consultation, are likely to include small multiplexes, mid-rise buildings, student apartments and seniors apartments, both of which provide an excellent return on investment because relative to other kinds of homes, they're cheaper to build on a per unit basis, but the people who move into a seniors apartment, for example, tend to free up a single family home in a community, and you receive the value in a community of a single family home for the price of building a seniors apartment. We also will be looking at garden suites and laneway homes. These are all tied to a broader strategy that we've put in place. I've walked some of you through in previous settings here the different pillars of the housing plan. Some of it includes the way we change the way cities build homes. Others include making the math work for builders. Yet again, we see not only the municipal approvals, but a series of different elements to the plan that are going to allow us to build more homes more quickly. This particular piece touches on several pillars of that plan, including the development of an industrial strategy. What you're going to see is an alignment of the municipal approval process with CMHC access with these pre-approved designs that will mirror, for example, the as-of-right zoning for fourplexes in big cities across Canada, which we're incentivizing through the Housing Accelerator Fund. So we're essentially trying to unclog the pipeline at every step of the way to create a much faster construction process using cost-efficient and labor-efficient and energy-efficient designs that are going to allow us to build the kinds of homes that will solve the housing crisis more quickly and more cheaply.
Kate
Without
McKenna.
compromising on quality, I should say.
Kate McKenna, CBC, please.
Thank you. This is for Minister Holland. There's no pharmacare legislation on notice. Are you missing the NDP's deadline, and will that mean the end of the confidence and supply agreement? And if not, why not?
Well, I think you might have heard yesterday Don Davies' comments as well. I think we're in full alignment on a couple of things. One, that the conversations that we've had together have been extremely productive. That this is an extremely complicated space, and in trying to find areas of common ground has certainly takes time, and that we both are committed to getting it right, and believe that getting it right is far more important than getting it done quickly. These markers were set in the Supply and Confidence Agreement as guidelines, but they are arbitrary. They really are really about the spirit of what we're trying to achieve. So we're continuing to work. We have a few days left, but as Mr. Davies said, and I would echo, getting it right is more important than getting it done fast. And the conversations we continue to have been productive. So I'm certain that we can continue to work forward on a collaborative and constructive basis.
Boris Prou, Le Devoir.
Merci. Ma question pour Monsieur Fraser. Je me demandais quel rôle vous voyez les provinces prendre dans votre projet de maison préapprouvée. Je comprends que l'approbation de tel projet ou la gestion du territoire, c'est plutôt de compétences provinciales. Est-ce que vous vous enlignez vers une nouvelle chicane avec les provinces et les territoires?
Non, je ne cherche pas une chicane avec mes homologues pour tout notre pays. Mais il y a des sujets dans la juridiction fédérale sur ce programme et des opportunités pour les provinces aussi. Alors, juste pour exemple, c'est possible pour le gouvernement fédéral d'établir un programme comme ça, juste pour créer des opportunités pour des développeurs d'accéder des programmes fédéraux comme ACHL, par exemple. Mais le value est maximisé quand nous utilisons des processus municipaux et des processus provinciaux aussi. C'est un choix pour des provinces de participer dans ce programme. Maintenant, les provinces de Colombie-Britannique, par exemple, créent un programme très similaire. C'est une opportunité. Il y a une opportunité pour le gouvernement fédéral pour améliorer la coordination dans des programmes partout dans notre pays, mais aussi créer un programme pour des provinces de participer si ils choisissent de participer. Just because it's difficult for me to explain in French. This is a huge opportunity for provinces and the federal government to work together, as well as municipal orders of government. There will be no requirement that provinces take part in our approvals. Should they move forward with their own, we are happy to play a coordinating role. But my sense is that players at the municipal level, the provincial level, in the private sector, and the nonprofit sector will all want to play a role, because by virtue of participating in this process, by using the pre-approved designs, making them available, you're going to significantly decrease the time for home building. You're going to reduce the costs without compromising on quality, and you're going to find with, in particular, more labor-efficient technologies that you're going to be able to build more homes in a given period of time than would otherwise be the case. So I sense that different levels of government will come to understand it's in their self-interest to embrace the concept of pre-approved designs. And if we can collaborate with our provincial partners and our municipal partners, we're going to dramatically accelerate the pace of home building in this country.
I'm afraid we have to go because we're already going to be late for
Just
cabinet.
wanted to ask you, with President Zelensky being in
But it's not
Washington,
going to be fair for others, so I'm really sorry.
it'd be great when you're wearing your pin to ask you about President Zelensky being in Ukraine.
Merci.
And any.
On va se voir. On va être au cabinet. Merci tout le monde. Merci tout le
Au-
monde. À tantôt. Merci.
All right, that concludes today's press conference. Thank you.